Uh, so thanks, Rahul, for the summary. Hi, everyone. This is Alok Patnia, Managing Partner at Tax Mantra Global. We are a global tax and legal firm in India, Singapore, and US. Uh, with COVID-19 situation coming in, the government has amended few of the provisions relating to FDI. FDI is basically foreign direct investment in India, wherein foreigners want to invest in India. Uh, there are few restrictions which are brought in. There are few relaxation. For example, and in the defense sector, wherein the FDI has been increased from 49% to 74%. So we will cover those scenarios. Over to Rahul. Rahul is a partner in Tax Madra Global. Great guy with us for 10 years now. Rahul, over to you. Please continue.
Thanks, Alok. Good evening, everyone. So just to give a background. So foreign direct investment.
Rahul,
Mention,
it seems that you are on a low connectivity.
it
You can switch
means
off the video. You can switch off the video and then speak. Maybe you are on low connectivity. Your voice is breaking.
is it better now?
Much better. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I was giving the brief background. So foreign direct investment, FDI refers to foreign equity coming into India, foreigners buying stake in Indian entities, setting up in India. So that is it is the foreign direct investment. And till 1991, India was kind of a closed economy, and it was the liberalization which happened during the 1991 under leadership of our ex Prime Minister Mr. Manmohan Singh, who was then the finance minister. So that foreign direct investment up to 51% was introduced, and that is when India started attracting foreign investments. And so we have traveled some time since then, and now India is one of the leading countries which attracts maximum amount of foreign direct investments. And so the overall foreign direct investment is regulated by the FEMA Act, Foreign Exchange Management Act of 1999. And mostly it's RBI, the Reserve Bank of India, is the governing body which brings in rules, notifications, and also keeps a check on the overall foreign exchange management and flow of foreign exchange into India and outside India. Of late, there are some changes happening wherein the finance ministry and the Department of Finance of the government of India is also getting some rights to bring in policies, bring in notifications related to Foreign Exchange Management Act. However, RBI is the supreme body which covers this aspect. So if someone wants to invest in India, wants to set up Indian entities, want to acquire equity in the Indian entities directly, there are two ways in which it can be done. So one is the automatic route of the RBI. So automatic route is a route wherein there is no prior approval required from the RBI. The investments can be done. So under the automatic route also, there are different percentages defined. In some sectors, in some industries, it's 100% automatic route. In some cases, it is 74%. Then there are 49% automatic route and 26%. So based on the percentage allowed under the automatic route, that percentage of equity can be acquired without getting any prior approval from the Reserve Bank of India or from the government of India. The only requirement remains is the reporting requirement. Once the investment is done, there are forms in which reporting has to be done with the RBI. However, if investment of a percentage more than what is allowed in the automatic route has to be done, then it moves to the approval route, wherein approval from the Reserve Bank of India and Government of India has to be obtained. So ideally, there are two routes. One is the automatic route up to the percentage allowed, and the other is the approval route, wherein after getting the approval from the RBI, the investment can be done. So under the automatic route, again, as we discussed, we have different percentages which are allowed, and we have listed down the industries where 100% FDI is allowed under the automatic route. It means that the companies can, like, up to 100% of the equity can be owned by foreigners, and still there is no approval required from the Reserve Bank of India. The reporting requirement remains, as we discussed. So like agriculture and animal husbandry, auto components, automobiles industry, biotechnology. So again, there is a concept of greenfield and brownfield projects. So greenfields are the one wherein the company invest in a new facility, the completely new facility, and brownfields are the projects where investments are done in the existing facilities. So biotechnology in greenfield, 100% FDI is allowed. Under e-commerce activities in B2B marketplaces, 100% FDI under the automatic route is allowed. Electronic systems, IT, ITS, software industry, it's allowed. Healthcare and pharmaceuticals, greenfield projects, it's allowed. Single brand retail, it's allowed 100% under the automatic route. Textiles and garments, it's allowed. Tourism and hospitality, medical devices, manufacturing. So these are the sectors broadly wherein 100% FDI under the automatic route is allowed. Then there are sectors wherein FDIs can happen, but under the approval route from the Government of India and from the Reserve Bank of India. So for instance, satellite establishment, mining, print and digital media, broadcasting and content services, core investment activities, food products, retail, trading. So for all these, if the FDI has to come in, it has to come in only through the approval route from the RBI. So then there are sectors wherein partial FDI is allowed under the automatic route. So banking, private sector, 49% it's allowed. Scheduled domestic passenger airline services up to 49% it's allowed under the automatic route. Biotechnology, greenfield is 100%, brownfield is up to 74%. Defense, it's 49% as of now. The finance minister in the economic package announced that it would go up to 74%. We are awaiting a final notification in this regard. Healthcare, pharmaceuticals, brownfield, it's allowed up to 74%. Telecom services, it's allowed up to 49%. So these are some indicative sectors and the percentage of FDI allowed under the automatic route. So as we discussed this in the very beginning. It's the route wherein no prior approval is required, but yeah, reporting requirements are there. So we'll quickly go through the reporting requirements. So FCGPR is the form which has to be filed within 30 days of issue of shares. So when an Indian company issues securities to foreign investors, they have to report it to the RBI within 30 days of such a transaction in form FCGPR. And this form should also be accompanied by the KYC of the investor, which is done and provided by the bank through which the transaction happens. There is a requirement of company secretary certificate, certain declarations are there. All these are requirements under the FEMA Act, and these have to be filed along with the FCGPR form. So this is a mandatory requirement. So irrespective of the transaction being covered under the automatic route, approval is not required, but reporting is required. Similarly, there are FCTRS forms. So FCGPR is applicable when there is a fresh equity issue, and FCTRS forms becomes applicable when there is a secondary transfer between two entities and making a foreigner a primary shareholder into the company. So in these cases, FCTRS forms are required. They have to be filed within 60 days, and it's similar to the FCGPR form, but the purpose is a bit different. So we'll quickly also go through what happens under the approval route. So if a company wants to invest in a sector which is not covered under the automatic route, or if it is covered under the automatic route, but the equity percentage which the foreign investor wants is more than what is allowed under the equity route, then they have the option of going to the approval route, wherein they can get the approval from the Reserve Bank of India, and if the proposal is approved, then they can make the investment as per the approved proposal. So normally in such circumstances, so applications for foreign investments in sectors and activities that require a prior approval will have to go through the standard operating procedure by registering in the Foreign Investment Facilitation Portal, FIFP. So if the application is digitally signed, no physical copy submission is required. And on receiving the foreign investment application or proposal, the application shall be processed by sending the same to the concerned ministerial department and RBI for its comments. So it will go to the concerned ministry also, and it will go to the RBI also. And all the proposals of FDI under the approval route, they are also copied to the Ministry of External Affairs and the Department of Revenue for their records and review. And any advice, comments from above mentioned departments are directly shared with the concerned administrative ministry assigned to decide on the proposal. And the proposals are scrutinized, and if any additional information is required, it is sought from the applicant. And post this, the competent authority is required to give out its decision, and either it would approve or reject it. And again, the approval or the rejection letters are sent online to the applicant. And there are some documents, there is a specific list of documents, some of them like board resolution, certificate of incorporation, data documents of the companies, the return copies, financial statements. So all these details are required to be submitted along with the approval application. So similar to foreign direct investment, if an Indian resident or Indian company, Indian party is making investments outside India, the investment has to go through the ODI route, overseas direct investment. And ODI also has approval route and the automatic route. There is a certain threshold up to which under the automatic route, the ODI can happen. And apart from that, then there will be the approval route, and approval will have to be taken. In both the cases, again, reporting with the RBI is mandatory. So even if under the automatic route, ODI investment are happening, if an Indian is buying equities outside India, setting up subsidiaries, setting up entities outside India, the ODI compliance with the RBI is mandatory. So the FEMA Act also has the definition of Indian party, which mostly covers the entities, LLP, and other than individuals, it covers the entities which are described as Indian party. And there is a definition of resident individuals, RI, which are covered under the liberalized remittance scheme, LRS, of the Reserve Bank of India. And there are certain restrictions on the Indian party and resident individuals to not set up step-down subsidiaries in India and joint ventures. However, we'll not take this up in much detail. So the topic today will stick to the FDI part. So this was just for a broad, to give a broader perspective and a brief idea about the things involved. Then there is a procedure of ODI reporting which happens through the bank through which the transfer happens. There is a ODI form which has to be filed, and all this is also there are declarations, there are certificates, there are requirements of valuation report, and all this is governed by the Foreign Exchange Management Act. All these compliances have to be done. There are certain restricted items wherein restricted sectors wherein ODI cannot happen in the automatic route, and rather they are restricted. So for real estate purchase and trading, for banking business, for financial services, if ODI is happening, so these are the restricted sectors. Now we'll move towards the changes which have happened during or before the COVID-19 situation, and we'll discuss those. So Alok, anything you would like to add? So if you want to share your views on the things we have discussed till now.
No, I think you have covered most of the points, and considering where we are at this point of time as a country, you rightly said that 1991 was a landmark year wherein we were forced to bring in a lot of changes. And now again, we are at a time wherein we have to move ahead and open up our sector. So, I think, and defense is one of the sectors wherein the government wants to make India into a defense manufacturing hub that will also help the Make in India goal. Also, the government brought in some restrictions with regard to keeping in mind the economy which is into little bit of stress, and to uh, restrict opportunist takeover or hostile takeover. So I think uh, overall it is in line with the overall objective.
Right, right. So yeah, we'll go through the changes which have recently happened and significant changes they are. So the first one being, so initially there was this Foreign Investment Promotion Board, FIPB, and this was the window for FDI approval under the government approval route. And this FIPB has now been abolished, and instead the Foreign Investment Facilitation Portal, FIFP, has become the administrative body to facilitate the FDI applicants under the approval route. So this is one significant change which has happened, and it happened before this COVID-19 situation came up. Then, as we discussed earlier, Reserve Bank of India was the sole authority which made laws related to and also did changes in the Foreign Exchange Management Act and governed the overall inflow outflow of funds and approvals under the FDI and ODI policies. But now the finance ministry in most of the cases will be notifying. It will be the notifying authority for any changes to the FDI policy instead of the Reserve Bank of India. So this is also a structural internal change which the government has done. Then various sectoral limits in both automatic and approval route has been changed recently. So we have covered those when we discussed the automatic route and the percentages which was available under the automatic route. One more significant change which was done is deferment of purchase consideration up to 25% of the total consideration. So earlier the consideration could not be deferred, but now up to 25% consideration of any foreign transaction related to FDI, they can be deferred in transactions involving share transfer between residents and non-residents within a period of 18 months from the date of transfer agreements. So the payment up to 25% can be deferred up to 18% from the date of transfer agreement, which was not allowed earlier. Apart from this, by way of a notification dated 27th April 2020, so government did few more changes in the process. So normally FDI can happen and allotment of shares can happen in two ways. One is the private placement route under the Companies Act, and other is the rights issue. So in the rights issue, usually rights are given to the existing shareholders, and under the domestic rights issue law, the rights can be renounced to any third party. The existing shareholders can renounce their right to third parties and make them shareholders under the rights route also. However, this was something which was restricted under the FEMA Act, and hence it was not possible to renounce rights and allow the shares to new shareholders in case of foreign shareholders. However, this particular thing has now been allowed by this notification with effect from 27th April 2020. And then applicability of sourcing norms on a single brand retail trading. So this norm was applicable on single brand retail trading, wherein there were certain percentages defined, wherein the sourcing for the same had to be done locally. However, this like there is an extension provided wherein 3 years from the commencement of 3 years or commencement of the first online store, online retail is what has been provided as a time period under which the company will have to start following the sourcing norms. So this is a relief which has been given to the single brand retails coming into India under the automatic FDI route. Then 100% investment under automatic route has also been allowed recently for the intermediaries or insurance intermediaries. So intermediaries including insurance brokers, reinsurance brokers, insurance consultants, corporate agents, they are now eligible to receive 100% FDI under the automatic route. So this change again is effective from 27th April 2020. Then we may be knowing, so this has been something which has been talked about a lot. So government has come up with a press note and they have amended para 3.1.1 of the extent FDI policy, which was part of the consolidated FDI policy 2017, and under which a non-resident entity was allowed to invest in India subject to the FDI policy, except in those sectors activities which were prohibited. So now this amendment, this particular provision has been amended, wherein an entity of a country which shares land border with India, or where the beneficial owner of an investment is lying and it's situated, then in those cases, the citizen of those countries and the entities who have beneficial ownership in those countries, so they are restricted from investment under the automatic route. So they will only have to go through the government approval route. Further, a citizen of Pakistan or an entity incorporated in Pakistan can invest only under the government approval route in sectors, activities other than defense, space, atomic energy, and sectors and activities prohibited for foreign investment. So the sectors which are prohibited, in those anyway, they cannot make investment at all. However, the sectors which were not prohibited and were covered under the automatic route fully or partially, even in those sectors, 100% of the FDI from the countries who share their land borders with India has to be through the government approval route. So mostly I think countries like Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh, Bhutan, China are getting covered under this restriction. So I think Sri Lanka is not getting covered. They do not share the land border. And not only the citizens of those companies, those countries are prohibited from making the investment, even the companies incorporated over there and the companies who have beneficial ownership in those countries. So such companies are also restricted. So if there is a US entity which has ultimate beneficial ownership sitting in, say, China, so they are also restricted from making investment into India under the automatic route, and they'll have to go through the government approval route. However, there is one important thing. So this restriction has been provided only to the equity route investment. So the foreign companies, they and foreign entities and investors are also allowed to provide loans to the Indian entities. So they are covered under the external commercial borrowing ECB norms of the RBI. So these restrictions, they apply only to the FDI rules, and ECBs are not specifically covered under this restriction. So normally ECBs can be issued to foreign companies holding at least 25% stake in that company. So the Indian company who has a foreign shareholder holding 25% or more of shareholding, the Indian entity can get external commercial borrowings from those shareholding entities, and this restriction does not apply to getting such loans. So this restriction also covers not only the current transaction, but also future transactions and secondary transactions. So it says that in the event of the transfer of ownership of an existing or future FDI in an entity in India, directly or indirectly, resulting in the beneficial ownership falling within the restriction purview as mentioned in point 1 above, such subsequent change in beneficial ownership will also require government approval. So if there is a reconstitution in the shareholding, either of the Indian entity, so as to give pass on the beneficial shareholding to the people residing in the countries sharing land border with India, and any change in any other entity, so be it a foreign entity which has a beneficial ownership in such countries. So those kind of transactions, those kind of reconstitution will also have to go through the RBI approval route. For instance, if there is an Indian entity which is held by a US based company, and earlier it was owned by another US based shareholders. So now if the US entity wants to sell out its shareholding to say a shareholder of Bangladesh, and so in that case also, because the Indian entity is the underlying entity and the beneficial ownership is moving to a country which is sharing land borders with India. So in that particular case, the change in shareholding of the US entity should also go through the RBI approval route, and this will not be covered under the automatic route. So this is something which is very important and significant. So we'll discuss about some of the penalties which are there under the FEMA Act. So if the provisions of the FEMA laws are not followed, with restrictions are not followed, with the compliance requirement, the filing and reporting requirements are not followed, any of the non-compliance of the FEMA Act can attract various penalties. There are provisions for imprisonment also, and so wherever there is a quantifiable amount involved. So for instance, if FDI is restricted and FDI happens, the amount of FDI is quantifiable, it has to be quantifiable, then the penalty of up to 3 times of the amount of FDI involved can be charged under the FEMA Act. So wherever the amount is quantifiable of the offense, the 3 times of the amount involved is what the penalty can be charged. Where the amount is not quantifiable, penalty can be imposed up to 2 lakh rupees, and even higher it can be determined based on case-to-case basis. And for continuing contravention, there is a penalty of 5,000 rupee per day of contravention in which the contravention continues. In addition to the penalty, any currency, security, or other money or property involved in the contravention may also be confiscated. Also, in certain cases, the guilty person is liable for punishable with imprisonment for a term which may extend to 5 years, along with the fine, which may be imposed. So, the penalty provisions under the FEMA Act is quite significant, and it acts as a deterrent that no non-compliance under the FEMA Act should be done. Even the enforcement of the FEMA Act is usually governed by the ED, and cases which do not go, which the RBI is not able to handle, they pass on the reins and the investigation and other things to the ED, and ED comes into picture, and so the implementation of the law is also quite strict. So the point we are trying to make is that we all should be very careful in dealing with foreign currencies, be it imports, exports, whatever applicable. Wherever there is a foreign exchange involved, any equity investment into India, outside India, that should be taken care of properly. All the filing requirements should be taken care of. All the restrictions, wherever restrictions is there, those transactions should be should be avoided. And wherever approvals are required, due approvals should be taken. Apart from that, under the FEMA Act, the RBI also allows compounding of offenses. So again, that is something which is a very detailed topic wherein there are various processes involved and various things to be kept in mind. So to make good the offense, the RBI may compound it by imposing certain penal amount, and then it can pass an order which will make the company compliant for that particular offense. However, the compounding is related to only that particular transaction. So every non-compliance which is attracted would either go through the penalty and prosecution process, or if the RBI wants, they can compound it, and after ensuring necessary compliance documentation, and also after payment of the compounding fee which has been determined by the RBI. So this is what we had for today. And if we have any questions, you can type or raise your hand. We can take up the questions. And Alok, if you would like to share your views on this.
So thanks, Rahul. One of the queries which I'm getting now is that how much time does it take for approval by the government if there is a approval route which we are getting into?
So approval normally depends upon, when the government has not covered it under the automatic route, it means there are certain aspects which the government want to check before allowing the approval. So approval is something which is very subjective, and it depends upon various factors: who are the investors, what value addition they are bringing into the ecosystem, what they are doing. For instance, in defense, if we are talking about approval, it usually nowadays is happening at a government to government level, wherein government to government contracts are happening, and then the approval is happening. So approval is very subjective, and we cannot put in any timeline, but in 3 to 6 months is what it usually takes in all the cases. But yeah, as I said, it has to go through the policies of the government, policies of the respective ministry. Do they want to approve in that sector or not? At times they put in certain financial criteria that X amount of investment has to be done for getting the approval, and only if the total investment is more than that amount, then the approval is allowed. At times sourcing norms are put in, wherein local sourcing is made mandatory, and then the approval is allowed. So it depends upon respective ministries, it depends upon the policies of the government, and it's very subjective on based on each merit of the case, and what
Rahul, I'm getting another question which says that is there a financial commitment which we need to do before there is an approval?
It depends. Like it is again it is so the government has different guidelines for different sectors, and at times there are internal guidelines which are not public, and that depends on each and every sector which we are looking to get the approval. So it's very case specific. We do not have a guidelines available to get the approval. It's on case to case basis.
Okay. Thanks, Rahul. So I think that's it. For more questions, you can send an email on the info@taxmantra.com, or you can also send on my email ID. Thanks for joining in today. We will come back with more webinars. Till that time, take care of yourself, stay safe, and stay positive. Thank you. Thanks, Rahul.
Thanks, Alok. Thank you everyone for joining.